Okay, we're going to talk today about the ultimate status symbol and making a real difference in the world. Now, that might sound like two topics, but it's actually one topic. I'm going to show you how you can do both at the same time. So, what is the ultimate status symbol? Everybody, every group kind of has their own status symbol. For some people, it could be having the latest smartphone. For some people, it could be having a really nice car. For most of the middle class people, the status symbol is their home. But what do the wealthy people do? What are the people who are, who have, tens of or hundreds of millions of dollars or billions? What do they do for a status symbol? And the one that they very often do is a charitable foundation in their name. Okay, so it's done by the super rich, but it can be done by anybody. Everybody can kind of do it. A good example is the Melinda Gates Foundation. You've probably heard that one. But it's possible for you to have your own charitable foundation in your name. So, just a modest amount of money. And that it really is the ultimate status symbol. It can be there for, 100 years after you're gone. So what we're going to learn today is what is the ultimate status symbol of the wealthy? What is a donation plan? What are the advantages of a personal charitable foundation? What are the tax savings of a personal charitable foundation? What's the difference between a public and a private foundation? You could set up either. How does a personal charitable foundation work? Who can you donate to? How can you know which causes make the most difference? That's interesting. What can you donate other than cash? What are some examples of effective donations? And how can you make a real difference in the world? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So first of all, you can just picture it, with your name, a charitable foundation with your name on it, contributing to causes that are important to you. And this can be, 100 years after you're gone, this foundation is still there, and people that you've chosen are running it. Just think of that, and that's something that you could achieve. So the benefits of a charitable foundation. So many people want to leave a legacy. You live your life, but especially, kind of later on in life, often you want to do something meaningful, leave a legacy that's going to be there after you're gone. So now if you're someone that's been following me, like most of our clients tend to be very or even people just follow me on the blog, tend to have a growth outlook and are often good savers and building up good net worth. And it's possible that you may have, quite a bit more money than you actually need or want to spend. So what do you want to do with that? And one of the things is you can, make a real difference in the world with it, leave a lasting legacy. I know there's kind of a myth. A lot of people think financial planning is for planning to get up to retirement or to be able to live the life that you want. And so it's only if you don't have it. But people have tons of money, don't need financial planning. But it's actually not true at all. So everybody needs it. And so, for the people that have tons of money, what they really need is a life plan. So let's say you have way more money than you're ever going to need. The question is, what do you actually want to do with it? And that's, it's a plan for your life. Like you could figure out in a plan, how much fun can you actually have? You can do travel, entertainment, and have multiple homes. And so you could have a lot of fun. You can leave it for your kids, or you can leave it, as a charity after you die, or, you could become a philanthropist. There's things that you could do with it. So part of it is if you've got more money than you want to spend or that you are spending, you can sit down and actually think about your life and what's important to you and what do you actually want to do with this money. If you do nothing, what happens is it just accumulates. And then your kids get a ton of money and maybe they just never have to work. And it can actually be not necessarily the best thing to give kids too much money. I love this quote from Warren Buffett, and it applies to his kids specifically because, Warren Buffett's worth, 200 billion. He says, give your kids enough so they can do anything, but not enough so they can do nothing. And I think that's, it's often the case that very wealthy people, their kids are just not that motivated. They grew up wealthy and they're never really worked that hard enough until become, something. So that's, the question of, do you actually want to leave it all for them, or what else do you want to do with it? So this is another option. So a charitable foundation is often also called a donor advised fund because you put money in, it's a fund, and then you advise who the money should get donated to. In some cases, you can even manage the investments on it. Now, what happens is you get the full tax credit now, but you stay invested. So if you've got a portfolio, you can move some investments in, get a big deduction, and stay invested. And the foundation has to donate 5% a year. It used to be 3.5%, but they just raised it to 5%, a minimum of 5% a year. So, for example, let's say that right now you're just donating, $5,000 a year or something to various charities. What you could do is donate $100,000 once. You get about $50,000 back on your tax refund. And then you've got $100,000 in the foundation. And then the foundation can donate $5,000 a year for you. So it's all done for you. You get your tax credit up front, and then you're not doing it anymore. The foundation can always do the donations for you. Just an example of how it could work. It's also good if you have a very high income year. You just have a really, really successful, great year, selling a lot, or you sold a business or sold a rental property or something. You get this big one-time year where you have a high income. Well, this is a good time to be able to donate a chunk of it and get and save a whole ton of tax. That's the year also you're in a higher tax bracket. Now you can get family involved in the donation committee, which is kind of cool. Then you can start talking about values and teach your kids about money and investments and how do you evaluate a charity, whether they're doing good work and whether they're doing it efficiently and all that. So, and other things, other people can donate to your foundation once you have one. You could talk to friends and family. They can contribute to it. They get a deduction. The foundation will give them their tax receipt. So if they like what you're doing and how you're donating it, other people can donate to your charity. Now, this can exist long after you're gone so that you're leaving a legacy. The donations can be confidential depending on how it's set up. You can donate anonymously if you want, and they can actually be not even available, like completely confidential, or you can have them all as a public record. And there are some creative investment strategies that can make the donation far larger, like up to 10 times as much with the same amount of money, which actually will be a topic of a future video, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Now, how do we get tax efficient donations? First of all, when you donate, it's got to be a registered charity in Canada. Okay, where you know it, look on the receipts. Often you get a receipt for you gave money to something, but it's not necessarily a charity, and you don't necessarily get a charitable donation deduction for it. So look for the number. It's 9 digits plus RR plus 0001. So look for that number on the receipt. And if you want to donate to a charity that is not in Canada, often that's the ones where you make the biggest difference, investing something globally. But you can ask them specifically if they have a Canadian affiliate. Now, generally, the way tax works, just roughly, so about the first 200 a year that you donate, you only get the lowest tax bracket, about 20%. And above that, you basically get 50% back, roughly above that. And then if your income is over 220,000, again, the highest tax bracket, then you get roughly 54% back. So it's a good amount that you get back. Usually you combine yours and your spouse together. Is normally you can both do it, but the problem is that the first 200 gets very little. So if you combine it, then only one of you would get the low amount on the first 200. You can carry it forward up to 5 years. The maximum is 75% of your net income. So you might want to claim on both of you if it's more than 75% of one person's income, then you split it up that way. The year of death, it can be up to 100% of your net income. So that's sometimes, in the year of death, we don't have a state tax in Canada, but we have, the final income tax return. And what happens is basically all your RSP is deemed to be, our RSPs and RIFs are deemed to be withdrawn, is all taxable. Any investments that you have are deemed sold, so you claim a capital gain. If you have a business, it's deemed sold and you have a big capital gain. You could have a rental property or a cottage or something. You could have a huge tax bill on your final estate. So that could be a good time to be able to donate a chunk of it and then save a whole bunch of tax. That year you're probably saving the 54% tax. Now, there are also some advanced strategies, things you should know about. So one really big thing that's just happening right now, it just got announced recently, is there's going to be a new alternative minimum tax starting in 2024. Now, we've had an alternative minimum tax here for about 30 years in Canada. What happens, you don't even see it usually. When you do your tax return, there's a separate calculation that's done with a different formula using the same income and deductions and tax credits. And for most people, that is a lesser tax, so it's nothing. But if that amount ends up being more, you end up paying that tax instead of the normal tax. Okay. Now they're changing the formula very significantly in 2024. So they're taxing at a higher amount, but they're starting at a higher level. But one of the big things, like when you actually talk to some tax experts and said, like, well, who is this actually going to affect the change here? And actually the single biggest area that it's going to affect is donations. So it's an odd thing, I think, for government to go after donations, but this government kind of thinks, rich people are avoiding tax by donating a lot of money. I don't personally have a problem with that. I think that's a really wholesome thing for them to be able to do. And the rich people are going to spend it way wiser than what the government would do. But what it's going to lead to is it looks like people are going to probably donate somewhat less starting in 2024. What happens is You make a big donation and now you don't get as much back. So then you talk to your experts and say, well, how much can I donate, but without getting the running into the extra tax? And then you just donate somewhat less. That's one option to kind of think of it. If you're thinking of doing a large donation, it might be a good time to start a foundation in 2023, get the donation done this year, and you can claim your deduction now. And I like to say there are better causes than paying tax to the government. You pay tax to the government, they're going to spend your money, probably waste it. But if you instead of that, you can save the tax and donate it to a cause that makes a real difference that's important to you. Now, you can also donate. A good one is you can donate stocks or in mutual funds. You can do investments, what's called in kind. So you put the investments themselves into your foundation. Then what happens is, in addition to getting the donation tax credit, you don't pay tax on the capital gain. So that can be a huge thing. Let's say you've got some investment that's gone up a huge amount of money and you're going to pay a ton of tax to sell it. Well, you can take that investment, put it in your foundation. Now you don't have to pay any tax on the capital gain at all. Plus, you get a donation tax credit on it. You could end up saving, theoretically, most of the value of that investment just in tax savings if it's a big enough capital gain. So that could actually be a really cool way to save more tax on it. And the other really interesting one, and I'm going to do a future post probably in the next couple of weeks about this, is there's an option to use what's called a flow-through share strategy, and that can actually allow you to donate up to 10 times more. So you put 100,000 in, but you actually get 90,000 back within a year or two in tax savings. So it's only cost you $10,000. So something you can even borrow the 90 and put it and get it back. So it's a way that you get quite a bit more in. This is going to be affected again by the new alternative minimum tax next year. But I don't know, it's a really interesting topic. It's, when you see people making, large donations, millions of dollars to charities like the hospitals or something like that, it's often that they're using some sort of a flow-through strategy like this and then donating it after that. So it's a really good, interesting thing to look at. And it's how you get into, a significant number. Now, how do most people donate? I've seen like thousands and thousands of tax returns, so I see what most people do. Most people donate. So studies say they donate on average 0.49, like 0.5% of their income. It used to be 0.6, and I guess it's cost of living is higher or whatever, so people are donating less. But most tax returns, you see 5 or 10 slips, sometimes more. I've seen people with 20 and 30 slips, but they're mostly small, $20, $100. And basically what it is, a bunch of marketers come to the door and they, or someone calls you up and they want you to donate something. So you just give them $50 or $100 so they go away. So that's what a lot of people do. And, it's not rewarding at all to do that. It's just it's whoever, the squeaky wheel, anybody who calls you up, you just give them a small amount of money to get rid of them. It's just not rewarding to do it that way. Now, so that's why I recommend having a donation plan. It's just a much more effective way to do it. So, sit down once and think about what's important to you, then only donate to, to those causes. So, just like a financial plan is the GPS for your life, a donation plan can be the GPS for your legacy and for your donations. So you decide on your causes. And then what you can do is you could, create a foundation now, for example, put either cash or investments in, and you might still be able to control the investments in some cases, or you can create a foundation in your will, which means you can donate part of your estate. You can leave life insurance that you can donate to your foundation, or you can make it the beneficiary of registered accounts so that, to avoid the tax on it. So one thing about it is, if you're worried about what your kids will do, let's say, if you're actually donating a large amount, it's possible that your kids or some beneficiaries could contest your will. So, but they can't contest donations now. Warren Buffett is actually giving 99% of his net worth to the estate. And his kids aren't going to complain, but theoretically they could. They could contest the will and say, he wasn't of sound mind, and get it overturned so that they get the money. So if you're worried about something like that happening, if you donate now to your foundation, the money's already in there. So there's no way they can test that. Yeah. So the benefits of a donation plan, this is how it benefits you. So basically what you do is you choose, a small number, usually 1, 2, 3 causes that are important to you, donate a larger amount of those causes. So rather than giving, $50 or $100 to 10 or 20 different causes, give 1,000 or 2,000 to, a couple causes that matter. So give us, a small number of causes, give them a bigger amount. Then it's actually fulfilling to be able to do that. And then what you do is, All the telemarketers, you just say no to them. You say, look, I have a donation plan. I decided ahead of time who I'm donating to. And so I'm not donating to you. So you can just say no to them all without feeling guilty. Also, your charitable foundation, once you have a foundation, your foundation can make all your donations for you. You don't have to make them yourself. Now, there's two main types, public and private foundation. So private foundation is where you actually create a corporation or trust and you control the whole thing. The problem is it's kind of complicated. You have to set this up. You got to learn all the tax rules. So you got to file with, you create your corporation or trust. You got to file with the CRA to get charitable status for it. So you set up the corporation. There's startup costs. There's annual costs like bookkeeping and knowing the CRA rules and CRA filings. When you donate, you have to know that these are proper charities you're donating to. And if you donate in shares in kind, you got to work that through. So, and you'll need some tax advice on, how to file all the CRA registration and the renewals and all that kind of stuff. And then here, if you have a public foundation, the plus is you control it, but one of the downsides is all the donors and the directors are public information. So anybody can look it up to see what that all is. Now, a much easier way to do it. So that may be, I think private foundation may make sense if you have a large amount of money. But for most people, a public foundation is just a really easy way to do it. So these are existing foundations that will set up, and you can have your own foundation within that public one. So it's an existing foundation already, and they basically can do all the work for you. So there's no startup, no setup, no legal fees. You don't need advice. They do all that kind of stuff for you. Now you can still mostly control it, especially who the donations to. You put the money in; they're already set up. Any CRA issues, you just ask them, and they deal with everything. And a lot of times the setup is really easy. It's like one form to fill in, and voila, it's set up, and you put some investments in or put some cash in, and you're away. So it's not really that onerous. You can do it actually quite easily. So all the CRA filings are done for you, and the costs are probably lower, except possibly for very large foundations, the costs are probably lower than if you did it yourself. So I think for most people, the public foundation is kind of the way to go. So I'm thinking of creating one myself, and that's probably what we would do. So now, how does a personal charitable foundation work? What you do, so you contribute once, or at least once to start, but you can contribute as much and whenever you want. And often what you do is you put one larger amount in to get it started, and then you get a 50% refund on it. So on whatever you donate. But you can start with a regular amount and just contribute regularly. So the refund, like the deduction you can get, the maximum is 75% of your taxable income. Now, remember, that's a taxable income after all your deductions and stuff, but you can actually contribute up to 75% of it and get half of that money back. You can carry forward the tax credit up to 5 years. Then what happens is you invest inside the foundation, and in a public foundation, they manage it for you. In a private one, you do it all yourself. But even in a public one, you may be able to manage it yourself if you have an amount of, depending on the provider, but if you have a significant amount, and it could be something, for example, $1 million. If you get up to $1 million altogether, then you could still actually manage it. So, there's a way you could maybe get yourself, or even get yourself and a couple other people, create a foundation, put the money in. It's $1 million, which means you could still be able to manage it. In our case, for our clients, we work through a few independent portfolio managers. So if you had $1 million in there, you could actually have, one of the same portfolio managers manage it for you. So inside the foundation. So 5% of the value needs to be donated every year. So now the cool thing about a public foundation is that it's 5% of the total foundation that must be donated. And most of these foundations are already contributing quite a bit more than that. What happens is they get some people that just put a one-time in and just donate it. So just in and out. So they maybe put in an amount and donate the whole thing right off the bat. And some are actually just, put a lump sum in, but they're doing it over 5 or 10 years or something. So most of them actually already donate the public foundations well over 5%. So the truth is, you don't necessarily have to do 5% yourself if you don't want to. And especially sometimes when you set it up, you might want to think about who to donate to. So you can probably put some money in and just let it sit for a couple of years and think about it, and then start, donating from there. Now, so you tell the foundation provider the causes you want to donate to, or the specific charities, and the percentages or whatever, and that's what they'll do, and they'll do it anonymously or in your name or whatever name you want to do it in. Okay, so it can be a fixed amount or a fixed percentage. You determine it, or you can create a board, get several trusted people with you, or family members, or get your kids or something that kind of decide together. And then what you can do is you can leave instructions for once you are gone either who to donate to or who makes the decisions after you're gone. So you can just always leave instructions with the foundation to, long after I'm gone, keep giving money to these couple causes. Or you could say, okay, when I'm gone, here's the people that will take over and make the decisions from here on in. So it has to go to a charitable purpose. So what is a charitable purpose? So this is from the Income Tax Act. Registered charities must have charitable purposes, and they basically are relief of poverty, advancement of education, advancement of religion, and or other purposes that benefit the community. That's basically the charitable purposes. Who can you donate to? So there's actually a list of what's called qualified donees. This list here is actually right out of the Income Tax Act. So it's, registered charities or athletic associations, a journalism foundation, housing corporation for low-cost housing, municipality. It could be a university, or in some cases, one outside of Canada. Registered charitable organizations outside Canada. There are a specific list of some that are outside of Canada, or it can be the United Nations. So these are kind of organizations that you could donate to. How do you decide? So, it's actually a big fear here because, a lot of people are worried about, I donate to a charity, but then there's a whole lot of overhead on them. So how much of that money is actually being used for the cause? And then often charities have people with very good intentions, but maybe not that knowledgeable or not, I don't know, not business people or don't know how to actually get results. So how do you find one where your money is actually going to make a make a big difference? So again, if there's a lot of overhead, it's not always bad because it could be that's what they do, how they have qualified people that they know how to make a real difference. But so how do you figure out which one's going to make a difference? So first of all, and how do you decide where to donate to? So first of all, you could find something that's just important to you personally for whatever reason that this charity is important to you. Could be a disease that you or someone you know that died of, or something that's in your family history. So I got my genome mapped last year, and actually it's interesting. So I have no predisposition to any specific disease, but if I had, then I could have picked, you can pick any disease that you have or you're more likely to get and, donate to that one. Now, there could be local or global causes. Like a big one to me is global poverty. It's one I see. I think it's still the number one problem in the world by far is poverty, global poverty. There's still, depending on where there's close to 1 billion people in extreme poverty. Say under $2 a day, and there's about 3 billion under $10 a day. So still a lot of poverty in the world. And you're seeing people suffer. So that's with global poverty is where you can actually help millions of people sometimes. So without that huge of a cost. So the advantage of donating locally is you can often see the benefits. It's an organization that's very close to you, and you can see the benefits. Gives you a good feeling from it. The global ones are actually the ones where you often make the biggest difference in the world. It could be way over some other part of the world and you don't really see it, but those are the ones where if you really want to leave a legacy, that's where, know that you've done a good job, like know in your heart that you've done something of value. It's the global ones where you can get the big bang there. Now, it could be something like a municipality that people think, why would I do it to a government? But what it could be is, as I see people do this sometimes, and it's a specific project. They want to have a park or a community center or something, and they actually gets named after them because you go to the municipality and say, I'm giving you so much money, but I want to have this one project done. And I've actually seen it done with a university. So you go in there and say, look, I've got some regular money, so I'm going to give you X amount of 10 or 20,000 every year, and I'd like you to have an annual scholarship in my name or whatever name you want, name of your foundation, and it's for graduates of this program or something like that, or people that have achieved a certain thing. So you can have a regular scholarship that way. So these are all kind of interesting things that you could do. It could be something that a family member or friend values. So you're just going to do what bits because it's important to somebody else, And you could just do some research on more effective causes. And I'm going to show you a few of those a little bit later on. What are really the most effective causes to donate to? So pick the right ones, and you can make a real difference in the world. So now, just an interesting little side here. So there's this thing called the Giving Pledge, and there's a bunch of billionaires that are involved in it. Now, so last I saw, there was 230 people in 228 countries that had signed up, and I think that was last year's number. So there's quite a few people that have signed up for this. And so basically what they're doing is it's voluntary, but if you do it, it is people will see it, so they'll know if you didn't do it. But basically what they do is it's people who are wealthy who are pledging to donate more than 50% of your estate. Okay, like Bill Gates, like Warren Buffett is donating 99% of his wealth. You don't have to feel sorry for his kids because the 1% is still a lot of money. Yeah, so this is a movement to make philanthropy a standard thing for the wealthy. And it used to be that a lot of people were thinking about this, intergenerational wealth. There's a old book by a guy named Piketty, where he's talking about how wealth goes through from one generation to the next and they build it up. But there's there's actually some people that actually think it's kind of un-American to donate a large amount of money. This is, in the US, because they, what, we're a country where people strive and achieve things. And if you just give your kids a bunch of stuff, they don't have to achieve anything. And, so it's better to, make up some money and then donate it where it will make a big difference in the world that way. So, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is where Warren Buffett is giving his money to. And it's because, I don't know, like he's become a bit of a political figure, but in the donation, his charity is actually focusing on very specifically on, specific diseases. And so that's why Warren Buffett is actually donating to him, because he actually sees this is a guy that actually knows how to be on the ground and actually get results. So now, the most effective charities and causes. Now, there are some, rating agencies where you can look at them, and that's, can be a place to start. So, it's charity administration and fundraising. So you can get the financial statements and have a look and see how they look and how they spend their money. These ratings is one's called Charity Intelligence Canada. So, and they rate them. I'll show you what they have global ones and local ones that they rate. I've been following this Bjorn Lomborg, who's part of the Copenhagen Consensus. So it's a group of top Nobel laureates that have actually gone through and looked at all the different causes around the world and tried to see which ones actually make a big bang for the buck. And so, as a finance guy, this is actually quite heartwarming, because a lot of people just donate to something. Governments often seem to give money to a cause. It seems like the goal is to announce giving money, but it's not about, they never follow up on what the results are. So the UN they have these sustainable development goals, the things that they think will make the biggest difference in the world. And there's I think there's 169 of them. Something's a crazy number of them, way too many. And it's because the UN is really just a big debating society. Everybody wants to have their own pet project in there. So there's way too many in there. Bjorn Lomborg is part of the UN, this whole thing. So they actually went through and all these top Nobel laureates, and they looked at each one of these causes, and they looked at what's the most effective thing we can do to help here. And then what's it cost to do it? And let's try to estimate the benefit. If it's lives saved, they even try to estimate the value of the life, but of the lives. But they're trying to give it, where do we get the biggest bang for the buck? And so I found that's actually really heartwarming for me to think, okay, here's the goal. Here's where we can make a real difference. So, and there's a number of goals with 15 times, and even some that have a 90 times as return. So the other thing you can do is I'm going to show you some of those in a minute. The other thing, if you donate to a charity, you can ask the charity, or if you're thinking of donating, you can request what's called an impact report for the charity, which they kind of show what they do and how their impact they say that they're doing. So that's a good way for you to try to assess what they're doing and is that actually working. Now, the book from this Bjorn Lomborg, I've got this book called Smartest Targets for the World. And it's a 20-year project that UN is working on, and he goes through them and he evaluates them all. And he's got a brand new book coming out. I've already pre-ordered it. It's coming out in the next couple of months. If you want to make the world better, this is the book to read. Yeah, it's called Best Things First, and I can't wait for that book to come out, because it's going to be. They've actually broken down. They've brought all these 169 solutions down to here are the 12 that are the most important for to help the world's poorest and towards improving the world. Here are the 12 causes, and here's the things that we can do that are most going to have the biggest effect on them for the reasonable amount of money, like per dollar, the biggest effect per dollar put in. So that'll be an awesome book. So yeah, it's evaluating the cost versus benefit of what you're putting in. We do cost versus benefit on all kinds of things, but very few people do with donations. But it's that's how you get real. If you want to make a real difference, that's kind of how you do it. Now, I got a little preview of it. So this is the 12 efficient goals, the top goals, the 12 most efficient solutions for the world's poorest and for the global sustainable development goals are fix tuberculosis, malaria, and other chronic diseases. Now, it's funny, tuberculosis, used to be the single biggest, back in the 1900s, was the single biggest killer of humans. So, and now it's, in rich countries, we don't think about it anymore because we already know how to fix it. But it's still a huge thing in globally. So in 2021, in the middle of COVID, more people died in the world from tuberculosis than COVID. So this is still a very significant disease. Actually, my own grandmother died of it. Now, you can tackle malnutrition, improve education, increase free trade. Free trade actually is really what gives jobs to people in poor countries. So free trade has actually brought more people out of poverty than all governments and all charities combined. So that's actually a cool one. Implement e-procurement. I'm waiting for that to come out because it's not clear what he means there. And secure land tenure. I think that's part of, helping, poor people actually start to own something, value. So those are the 12 biggest goals. And then how do we deal with them? So to solve these issues, or at least make, a 50 to 90% improvement, the cost is 35 billion. So globally, that's, for all the different countries and charities, that's actually not that big of a number combined. Obviously, big number for you and I, but it's about all combined. And the benefit is you save 4.2 million lives a year, and it's a benefit of 1.1 trillion per year for the world's poor, for an investment of only 35 billion. So an amazing return on investment. So can't wait for that to come out. We'll see how we can, that could be a great way to go. Now, I've had this I had a previous, about a year ago, I did a video about how to donate effectively, and I had these charts here. So these are all from the UN Sustainable Development Goals. You can find them on the internet, but they just talk about, the important areas. This is from Bjorn Lomborg's last book, and from the UN, and what they think are the areas that will make the biggest difference. So now, as far as far as rating agencies for charities, so this is Canadian Impact Charities. This is you can actually find this online. So this is last year's, but these are the, what they rate as the top charities, the 10 charities in Canada that have the biggest effect per dollar. These are in alphabetical order, not in any other order. And these are the ones that, global ones. And so, malaria is actually one of Bjorn Lomborg's top things. So there's a few of these. Again, these are alphabetical order, but these are global charities that can make the biggest difference globally. So that's one way you can start with a list kind of like this. All right. So thanks a lot for listening. That's my video, my talk for this podcast for this week. What we learned is what is the ultimate status of the wealthy? What is a donation plan? What are the advantages of a personal charitable foundation? What are the tax savings of a personal charitable foundation? What's the difference between a public and a private foundation? You know that now. How does a personal charitable foundation work? Who can you donate to? How can you know which causes make the most difference? How can you donate other than cash, or what can you donate other than cash? What are some examples of effective donations? And how can you make a real difference in the world? So I hope this is, beginning of a bigger new, philanthropic movement. All right. So thanks for listening again. My name is Ed Rempel. My blog is called Unconventional Wisdom. It's the #1 blog in Canada for a financial planner. It's edrempel.com. It's also unconventionalwisdom.ca, not .com. If you want to talk with us, we do, comprehensive financial plans. All you do is just search for Ed, or go to edrempel.com/talk. I got the blog. I have a new podcast started a few months ago. It's out on like 20 different sites, and also the YouTube channel if you prefer to watch videos. And the podcast is at edrempel.com/listen. The YouTube is at edrempel.com/watch. So please like and subscribe. If you subscribe, all it means is you'll get an email every time I have something new out, just an email, so you'll know what's out there. We don't do any other marketing, so that's all it is. And if you hit like, then it helps, it helps get more exposure to this unconventional wisdom in my blog. So thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.